going into idolatry, making two golden calves, and the judgment that the Most High said would happen to us. We read in 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 1 through 12, the judgment, and verse 13 through 15 about us being scattered beyond the river, scattered beyond the river. So now we're going to go back to 1 Kings chapter 14 and look at what Ahijah had said. Ahijah is a prophet. He doesn't have a book in the Bible, but he is mentioned in the book of Kings. So he was there during the time of our kingdom before we went off into captivity. You see, the Most High always sent messengers, always sent teachers to teach the people, to guide them back to the Most High, to get them in on the right track. Okay? So we're going to go to 1 Kings chapter 14. We're going to read verse 16 all the way to 21. Okay, let's read verse 16 to 21. All right, so it says, "And he shall give up Israel because of the sins of Jeroboam, who did sin." So now, when you read a verse up, it tells us that Israel was going to be scattered into slavery. We'll read just a verse up. "For the Lord shall smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of this good land, which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their groves, provoking the Lord to anger." So we can see here that based on what happened, that Jeroboam, who sent his wife to go talk to the prophet. She tried to deceive him, but the Most High said, "Look, you're going to have Jeroboam's wife try to trick you, but let her know this is what's going to happen. This is the judgment I have for his household based on the fact that he caused the entire people, the entire congregation to worship false gods, to worship golden calves, to worship Moloch, to worship Baal Zebub." All right. So watch this. It says, and it reads, "And he shall give up Israel, and he shall give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who did sin, who made Israel to sin. And Jeroboam's wife arose and departed, and came to Tirzah. And when she came to the threshold of the door, the child died." So see how accurate the Most High was. He gave a prophecy. He said, as soon as you get to your house, your kid is going to die. And exactly what he said, that's what transpired. Okay. Verse 18, and they buried him, and all Israel mourned for him, according to the word of the Lord, meaning the prophecy which he spake by the hand of his servant Ahijah the prophet. You see that? So now people are surprised and shocked by this because they're like, wait, hold on. Why did he prophesy this? Why didn't he say some nice stuff? People think that when you pray to the Most High and a prophet comes and speaks, that it automatically means that good is going to happen. A lot of times when a prophet came to teach, when the people did not repent, they prophesied destruction. Okay, so we're going to read that in Jeremiah chapter 28, where Jeremiah himself said this: "The prophets that have been before me." So Jeremiah is saying the prophets that you see in the past, like Noah, right? Like Moses, like Joshua, like Ahijah that we just read about, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. So you see that? We never went over there talking about, oh, there was going to be peace and stuff. But he says, the prophet which prophesies peace, the prophets which prophesies peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord has truly sent him. So there's a variation. You have prophets that come in that tell you that, listen, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be war, there's going to be evil, there's going to be pestilence. Then you have false prophets that come and say, no, there's going to be peace, there's going to be safety, there's going to be good stuff happening. So whoever tells the truth, you'll see it and you'll know that the Most High had sent them. Okay. So a lot of times people get confused because they go to church And they hear these prosperity pastors and pimps in a pulpit that talk a lot of mess. And next thing you know, they're wondering why their life is not going good. And they're still in the midst of evil. They haven't repented of their sins. They're still living in wickedness and they don't want to change. So now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 14, and we're going to read verse 21. We're going to read verse 21 real quick. It says, and Rehoboam, so now we saw at the northern kingdom side what happened and what was the judgment for the 10 tribes that they were going to be taken into slavery. And this is known as the Assyrian captivity. This is the first slavery that they went into. So now we're going to read about Rehoboam, which was Solomon's son, under the second kingdom, which is the kingdom of Judah, and find out what happened with that. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 40 and 1 year, so 41 years old, when he began to reign. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. An Ammonitess. So remember, if you remember back in 1 Kings chapter 11, right? King Solomon had married wives of other nations and they brought him to idolatry. So those same wives taught the children because the majority of the time women are responsible for the rearing of the children and the education of the children. So let's find out what happened. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1 and 2. It says, but King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, that's the Egyptians, the women of the Moabites, that's the Chinese, the women of Ammonites, that's the Japanese, the women of Edom, that's Caucasians, Sidonians, that's the Canaanites, and the Hittites, that's Canaanites as well. Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in to them, neither shall thou come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So we see the sin that Solomon did, and now we're going to read about how his descendant, King Rehoboam, did the very same thing. So let's read that in 1 Kings chapter 14. Now we're going to read verse 23 and up to 25. All right, let's read that real quick. It says, and Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord. So now you see that all the kingdoms went off. You see, it wasn't just northern kingdom. All the kingdoms went off, including the kingdom of Judah. It says, and Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins, with their sins, with their sins. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins, which they had committed, above all that their fathers had done. For they also brought them high places, that's your churches, high places, that's your churches, that's your houses of worship, and images and groves, and every high hill, and under every green tree. So hold on, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. Nothing is new under the sun. Let's look at real quick. Let's look at real quick what we can see as far as the same thing going on in Christian churches, right? You have your wood cross and you got your good old Christmas tree. You got your wood cross and your good old Christmas tree. This is what's talked about as idolatry. Ain't that funny? Idolatry. So think about it. We're reading right here in the Bible in First Kings that it says that they built them high places and images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. Huh. Last time I checked, there's one thing called an evergreen tree. Hmm. An evergreen tree with star worship? An evergreen tree with a star at the top? Paganism. Paganism in the churches. Paganism in the churches. You see that? Under every green tree. The Most High been against this since day one, but you have to have spiritual eyes to see it. The churches exalt paganism. The churches put the devil at the forefront and not the God of creation. They do not worship the God of the Bible. They mix in paganism with truth. So now think about it. If you have a cup of juice and it's 90% juice but 10% poison, guess what? You're still going to die. So it's important for us to understand the evils that are going on in these churches and how these churches promote wickedness and fornication. So now idolatry, according to the Bible, is spiritual fornication. Watch this. We're going to go to a verse in the Bible that proves this in the hidden books of the Bible known as the Apocrypha. We're going to Wisdom of Solomon about idolatry and how Solomon was wise enough to understand how the Gentiles bring in idols to our people as stumbling blocks to destroy our souls. So in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 12, it says this: For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them, the corruption of life. So these Christmas trees that people worship in are the corruption of life. They don't bring people closer to God. They actually bring people to destruction. They bring people to worship things that are ungodly customs. Watch this. In that very same chapter, when you go down to verse 16, it says this: Thus in process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law, and graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings. You see that? So just like in the same way the kings of the earth set up Caesar Borgia, which is the false image of Jesus Christ, to be worshipped, is the same way they set up their Christmas trees, right? So Caesar Borgia is depicted as Jesus the Christ, right? Why Jesus got a hat on? If this was the real Jesus of the Bible, why the hell he got a hat and some damn gloves like Michael Jackson? This is the painting. This is the image of the Pope's son. Okay, this is the Pope's son. Rodrigo Borgia had a son named Caesar Borgia, and this is the image that they used for the Christ throughout the Christian church, throughout the Catholic system, the Protestant system, the Seventh-day Adventist system. This was the one that they have in the Seventh-day Adventist church. Okay. This is the one that they have in the Roman Catholic Church. Okay. This is not Jesus. I repeat, this is not Jesus. So we were all taught a false gospel, a false Christ, a false narrative. But when you read the Bible teaches us the truth. So what else comes with spiritual fornication? Because what happens with spiritual fornication is that people actually also partake in literal fornication, breaking the laws found in. Let's see what happened in 1 Kings chapter 14 when they started setting up their own churches of idolatry. Watch this. 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 24. And there were also sodomites in the land, right? These are male cult prostitutes. These are your priests. These are your pastors in the Catholic Church that are sodomites in the church. Let's read verse 23 just to get the context. For they also built them high places, that's your churches, that's your houses of worship, and images and groves and every high hill and under every green tree. Your evergreen tree, your Christmas tree, is in the church. So also in the church, there are abominations in the land. And they did according to the abominations of the nations, which the Lord did cast out before the children of Israel. So not only is there homosexuality going on in the world, but homosexuality is also in the church. Now, does the Most High ever sanction this thing? No, he does not. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22, I believe. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22. I did not write this, but it's in the Bible. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. So just in the same way you don't pour dog doodle on yourself and call it perfume or cologne, is the same sense that the Most High does not want a man to lay down with another man or a woman to lay down with another woman as if it's normal. It is abnormal. But associated with these things is the paganism of the church, which is the worship of Molech, the worship of Baal, and child sacrifice, which are your modern day abortions today. It says, For thou shalt not let any of the seed pass through the fire to Moloch, neither shalt thou profane the name of the Lord thy God. I am the Lord. This is where you get your abortions for Roe v. Wade, right? This is where you get that stuff from. And on that note, many people don't know that Margaret Sanger, the person that was the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was the one that set up abortion clinics throughout all minority communities, and she was well known to be the head forerunner and held meetings during KKK events. So now, is it true that the modern day churches are participating in acts of sodomy? Let's find out here on the Forefront Radio. We're going to play a podcast that we did a long time ago called Dirty Pastors.
More than 200,000 children have been victims of paedophile priests and other clergy over the last 70 years in France. That's according to a report that has just been published. The head of a commission into sexual abuse within the Catholic Church said the perpetrators were protected by a veil of silence, with victims often treated with a cruel indifference. Now, since 1950, some 216,000 children have been victims of abuse by members of the clergy. The commission found evidence of around 3,000 abusers out of a total of 115,000 priests and other clerics. Jean-Francois is a former student.
Hold on, wait a minute. 260,000. That's an entire community of people, y'all. 260,000. Okay, the Bible is the true book. There is sodomites in the church. Listen on.
At a Catholic seminary and a victim of sexual abuse.
Cette éducation,
Diseducation, disindoctrination,
avec, comme je vous le disais tout à l'heure,
with the alibi of serving God and religion, their institution. With this alibi, they allow themselves all sorts of intellectual and physical manipulations.
Live to Paris, our correspondent there is Hugh Schofield, who's been listening into the report findings. It's hard to put a single word on it, Hugh, but so shocking, some of the things in the report, the figures that have emerged.
Well, one will need to dig into the report more fully to get the sheer horror of some of the stories. But from what we heard in the press conference, all the people who took part in drawing up the report have been profoundly affected by the testimony that they heard. They heard hundreds of victims, and in the words of the Commission President, they went down into the depths of depravity. It was an ordeal for the Commission members just to hear and document what was described to them. In the immediate term, of course, the headline figure is so shocking as well, though, as you say, 216,000 victims over 70 years, and that increases to 1,330,000 if you include victims who are the victims of lay members working in Catholic institutions, so Catholic schools, scout camps.
So this individual is telling you that we have 1/3 people impacted by the Roman Catholic Church. And I can assure you it's much more than that. Much more than that. And that's just over the course of 70 years. Now, this church, allegedly, was established around 300 or so AD. So this shows you that over 1,000 years, they've been raping, murdering, creating acts of genocide on races of people, enslaving the Israelites, and then turn around and say, God bless America. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. You got judgment on the way. So that's enough for that for now. I'm going to go ahead and switch back gears to the scriptures. We're going to go to 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 30. 1 Kings chapter 15. I keep going to 2 Kings for some reason. 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 30 through 34. We're going to read that. All right, let's read that real quick. It says, because of the sins of Jeroboam, which he sinned, and which he made Israel sin, by his provocation wherewith he provoked the provoked the Lord God of Israel to anger. Now the rest of the acts of Nadab and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings? And there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. In the third year of in the third year of Asa, king of Judah, began Baasha, the son of Ahijah, to reign over all Israel in Tirzah 24 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did evil in the sight of the Lord and walked in the way of Jeroboam in his sin. So now we know that the two sins that the nation of Israel were caused to fall under was idolatry and sodomy. That sounds like the same thing like today. When you look at these black churches, right? What's the two primary things that are filled in the church? Idolatry, worship of that white image that's not in the Bible, and sodomy. Okay, you have LGBT folk that's running the church. Okay, and I know I'm not lying because I've seen it, witnessed it with my own eyes. Okay, this is the sin that is throughout all of these religions, including Islam. Now let's fast forward and see if this same thing is happening in Islam. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 14. We're going to read verse 14 through 24. So remember the prophecy that we read earlier about the judgment that would happen, right? What Ahijah had prophesied. Now we're going to look at Elijah, one of the greatest prophets of the Most High. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 14. And now thou sayest, go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. And Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to Ahab and told him, and Ahab met to meet Elijah. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? So here's a king in Israel, wicked dude named Ahab, that was married to Jezebel, right? Jezebel, who were idolaters. They were following in the same sins of Jeroboam and the same sins of Rehoboam, right? It says, and it came to pass when Ahab saw him, that Ahab said to him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? Hold up, wait a minute. So the prophet is there to lead people back to God, but the wicked leader is saying, oh, you're troubling us. That's the same thing with modern day pastors and people that follow modern day pastors and religious leaders and political leaders. Whenever you have men stand up and tell them, no, follow the ways of God, they're going to come against you and say, you're troubling us. Same thing happened with Christ and the disciples. They were trying to teach the religious leaders to stay away from hypocrisy and evil, but they wanted to follow the Caucasian Romans. The Romans had us under subjection just like today. And you have political leaders and religious leaders that work with them. Verse 18, and he answered, this is Elijah talking now, and he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Balaam. Y'all worshiping the golden calf. Y'all worshiping that white Jesus. Y'all worshiping that Molech, that child sacrifice beast. Y'all worshiping the image of the beast. We're telling you the commandment says don't worship other gods, but you, with no biblical evidence, still bow down to the image of the beast. Verse 19. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal. Okay, the prophets of Baal. The word Baal is where we get the word Allah in the Islamic faith. Baal is the same as Bel, and Bel and Allah and Baal are the same deity. It's a moon god. It's a moon god. This is the image of the moon god, which is the crescent moon in Baal worship in Islam. Okay, so we have some of our people partaking in the idolatry of Islam and some of our people partaking in the idolatry of Christianity. Watch this. Verse 21. And Elijah came unto the people and said, how long will ye between two opinions? If Yahweh be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. So this is how bold prophets are. They'll come up to an entire group, a congregation, a whole group of people and say, look, it's either you serve the Creator or you're going to die in your sins like your ancestors did. Verse 22. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord. Baal's prophets are 450 men. So you have one warrior for Christ standing up against the wickedness of society. One person standing up and saying, I'm not going to follow the crowd against 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves and cut it in pieces and lay it in wood and put it under fire. And I will dress it and the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under it. And call ye on the name of your gods, call on your Jesus, call on your Baal, call on your, well, let me not say Jesus, because Jesus is the regular English word for Yahweh, so nothing wrong with that. Let's say call on Baal, call on Tammuz, call on Easter, call on Santa Claus, there we go, call on Bel, call on Baal, call on Allah, and see if these deities stand up to the God of the nation of Israel, right? He says, call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God that answereth by fire, let him be God. And all the people said, it is well spoken. So we see here that the nation of Israel was in steep idolatry, just like the Christian church. And there's a stark warning that the Most High has against slavery, oppression, and idolatry. Let's go to Exodus chapter 21, verse 16, and it reads, And he that stealeth a man, and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. This is the judgment for those that have stolen people and committed acts and atrocities against them. Has America stolen and sold us into slavery? Yes, they have. Has America stolen our people, our whole entire race, and put us on auction blocks? Yes, they have. And are we still found in their hand? Yes, we are. Therefore, the judgment is, he shall surely be put to death. Those that are in the Catholic Church, that are participating in the idolatry as well as in the sodomy, what is the Most High's judgment for them participating in all this evil? Okay, you can go to the book of Leviticus chapter 20 to find out the judgment that shall be poured out. Watch this. It says, And if a man also lie with mankind, as he layeth with a woman, both of them that have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. So now, people think that this is a game. They think that we're not really prophesying against them. They think that this is just, we're reading scripture. This is also in the New Testament. where it talks about the condemnation of those that enslaved us and those that participate in lawlessness. Revelation chapter 13, verse 9 and 10. If any man have an ear, meaning if you got ears in your head, listen to this, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Did the Roman Catholic Church and the Edomites, also known as Caucasian Europeans, sell us into slavery? Yes, they did. Did they use war and bloodshed, prostitution, sodomy, and all manner of evils on the earth? Yes, they did. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. You have to wait on God. You have to wait on God to send this judgment. Now, is this the same thing for Islam? Yes, it did. Did the Arabs sold us into slavery and captivity in all nations and scatter us all the way from North, Central, South, and East Africa, all the way to the far reaches of the Americas and the far reaches of the East African slave trade, the Silk Road slave trade, the Trans-Saharan slave trade? Yes, they did. So the judgment for that is what we just read in Exodus chapter 21. What we just read here in Revelation chapter 13. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. So now people say, oh, maybe I could run to religion. Maybe religion will help me. Well, let's see what the Most High says in regards to those that still want to follow these modern religions. In Revelation chapter 14, verse 9, it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, if any man worship the beast and his image. So Christ before looked like a black man, and now all of a sudden, mysteriously, he looked like a white boy. When did that happen? Who did that? I wonder. So if the Christ of the Bible is a black man, then all of a sudden he's a white man, somebody's worshiping a particular image. Let's go back to the Bible verse again. And it reads, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. So which is that mark that people are receiving? The mark of lawlessness, the mark of sin, the mark of iniquity, the mark of lawlessness. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy nations and in the presence of the Lamb. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is a barbecue that we want no part of. We do not want to be a part of this barbecue. And the smoke of their torment, barbecue. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, or whosoever receiveth the mark of his name, the mark of sin. So now let's go to the last book, the last couple of pages, to see what we're talking about as far as the mark of sin. When you read in Revelation, it tells you who's going to get in the kingdom and who's not going to get in the kingdom. It tells you that the kingdom of Israel will have 12 gates. We're going to read that real quick. It says, and had a wall great and high. This is the kingdom of heaven, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, big old black bodyguards, and on the names written, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. The names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So if you're not on that VIP pass as the righteous of Israel, you're not going to make it. So let's be righteous. Let's walk in the ways of the Most High. Let's keep his words and do what he says. Okay? Behold, I come quickly. Behold, I come quickly. Blessed is he that keepeth the sayings of the prophecies of this book. That's Revelation chapter 22. That is the last book in the Bible, the last chapter in the Bible. So if we walk in the ways of the Most High, keep his words, we will make it in. So guess what? In order to do that, we have to be sealed with the Most High's righteousness. We have to be sealed with his ways. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life. Guess what? You have right to the tree of life when you do his commandments. and you may enter through the gates into the city. The 12 tribes of Israel have 12 gates. There is no Baptist gate. There is no Islam gate. There is no Pentecostal gate. There is no Seventh-day Adventist gate. There is no Kundalini Yoga gate. There is none of these religions that are on the earth gate. The only religion that was given on Mount Sinai is the God's laws, statutes, and commandments, and faith in his deliverer, faith in his Messiah. That's it. That's it. But guess what? Those that still want to worship the beast and follow after Satan and these Roman Christian Catholic churches and Islam and all the other religions of the earth, it says this: for without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. So those that love to lie and those that create the lies throughout these churches, they're not gonna make it in. But for us that are trying to do our best to overcome the witchcraft of this world, the deception, the rebellion, the sorcery, the whoremongering, the murder, the bloodshed, the evil, the idolatry, these are people that says, to hell with Christmas tree, to hell with Santa Claus, to hell with Easter celebrations, to hell with Ramadan, to hell with all that stuff, to hell with the mezuzahs and the what else they have in paganism over there. To hell with the Kabbalah, okay? To hell with the Talmud and all the paganism within Judaism. These three so-called Abrahamic faiths are cap, BS, lies, demonic activity. All right, so that was our time. So thank you for listening to the Forefront Radio. I'm your host, Afia Levi Israel. If you have any questions or if you want to send hate mail, hit me up on Instagram on the Forefront Express or email me at theforefrontblackmedia@gmail.com. Peace and blessings to you all. I'm going to end